unusual couple, you know.
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
Doing to see Wanda. Wanda.
Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan podcast. I am Jordan Wiegand, and today I have a special guest, Logan Stumph.
Hi. I think this is weird. This isn't soccer.
First time. This is your first time on the show.
This is exciting.
Just little behind the scenes here. Casey and I recorded one hell of an episode last night and early this morning, but due to technical issues, we can't use it. It's a lot of it didn't record right. I also didn't want to rope him into this again tonight because his team is Tampa Bay and they're in the Super Bowl. So I figured I will, either do it by myself or get somebody to jump on last minute. Thank you, Logan, for jumping on here. So the way that we usually do this is we go into the episode, but real quick, I do want to ask you just what are your thoughts so far up until this episode on WandaVision, since you've never been on?
Yeah, so this was the one that I wasn't looking forward to at all, really. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be. It was kind of confusing, and to be honest, I was like, okay, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I think so far, like, especially building up, I think as the episodes have gone and we've gotten more like that breaking of cast and different things like that, and you get more of like what's really happening with Wanda. I think it's pretty cool to see what's going on with WandaVision, just because it plays to like it's taking her character arc and putting her in a place that I think when we get down towards the end of this series, that it's putting her back into the universe after all these big fallouts have happened because of Thanos. So overall, I mean, it's really getting good. I mean, now I anticipate it like I was with Mando. I mean, it's something that I look forward to. It's a nice break too from what I'm used to with Marvel. I think it's done a really good job, and the writers have done pretty well. I mean, each of the episodes have been unique in ways that I didn't think they would come up with Marvel. So it's nice to see that element and that breaking of the glass, that it's a different kind of thing with Wanda, and I can't wait to see what's going on with her and why she's doing what she's doing.
Yeah, it was a risk, right? It was a risk that they took here on how this would be received, and there was a lot of people impatient after the first week, even after the second week, on what this show was going to be. But I think it's paying off, especially in the last 2 weeks. So that we're talking about episode 5 of WandaVision, called On a Very Special Episode, which is, of course, is a reference to the 1980s sitcoms that this is taking place in here, which always had these special serious episodes like once or twice a season to teach the students or viewers, even not the students, I mean the children or the viewers, on life lessons like abuse or drug addiction. They would spin it in different ways, like in Saved by the Bell in the 90s they had Jesse with the caffeine pills instead of actual drugs. But this is what they're referring to here. It's written by Peter Cameron and Mackenzie Doer, directed by Matt Shakman, and premiered February 5th, 2021 on Disney+, with the theme song written by Frozen All-Stars Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, with the score by another Frozen All-Star here, Christoph Beck. The synopsis is: Wanda addresses Vision's worries when he grows suspicious of the neighbor's strange behavior. Logan, give me your initial thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just because of what's going on. I mean, obviously Vision, because I guess he's dead because of the blip, but and then everything that happened before that. But yeah, I think as they start to play into this, just the idea of them interacting with people, and the more that they interact with people, the stranger it gets, because I think Vision starts to put it together where he's interested in seeing like, what's really going on, what's happening. And then you get some of that. I mean, it foreshadows what's happening later on in the episode that I think is really interesting. But again, as it starts out, like always, you're like, okay, so like it goes back into the sitcom and something's going to go awry. You just don't know when it does. And then all of a sudden it starts to happen. And you see that with, his interactions with different people throughout the episode. So right off the bat, it was interesting just to see, that wall being broken down, that Wanda is clearly created for a reason, that I think we're starting to get more and more from as she's talking to Vision, as she's talking to Agnes, and everything that's happening in the beginning of this episode. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode. I think episode 4 is still my favorite as we go right now, but this one was a lot of fun. It gets really serious in the near the end of the show, and we get some of the best acting performances we've seen from Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen in the MCU, in their roles in the MCU so far, and it's great. So let's get a little deeper into it here. We open in the 1980s, and Wanda is trying to get Tommy to sleep. Vision walks down, rocking Billy, and they're crying. They've mentioned they haven't slept in a while. Vision, Wanda sends Vision to go get the binkies, the pacifiers. Wanda tries to use her magic to make them sleep, and it doesn't work. And one thing I think was very interesting in her wording here was, "Why won't you do what I'm telling you to?" or something like that. I think this is showing that the children are not affected by her magic here in this reality.
Yeah, it's really cool because it sets up for the whole episode. Really, I mean, when you're talking about Wanda, she's starting to, I guess, because maybe she's realizing that wall's being torn down, like that glass barrier of what she's done, the trance that she's put all of them in. I think the reality is starting to set in, so it's interesting to watch her kind of fade away from what's actually happening. And you get these really cool moments in this episode too, where you look through her eyes and you can see that everything that happened in reality is starting to catch up with her into this, fake reality that she's created. And you see that pretty early on when she can't get the kids to do what she wants them to do. And I think they do a good job of setting that up like they're babies at first. So like, I mean, they're small children that would have like hardly any kind of power against it. And the fact that she can't get them to do what she wants, you can just see in her eyes that things are starting to fall apart for her.
And why do you think it is that she can't control them? Is it, and here's my theory that I just kind of thought of right now, so this is a bonus from whatever I recorded yesterday. Is it because Billy and Tommy are the only people that were actually created in this alternate universe? So they're not under a spell like everybody else is?
Yeah, I think maybe because that and because maybe they don't have like a preconceived notion of like what the world's actually supposed to be. And what it was. And I think that when you start to realize what some of these other characters, and we'll talk about later, that start to get out of that funk is, I think they start to they put together things that have happened in previous experiences. So I think that has a big impact on the kids not having any kind of past experiences to be able to build on and to kind of just go along with it. And I think that they are able to break it because they just don't have those experiences and they don't have anything that they're latching onto. So they're just kind of living in the moment. Whereas Wanda can't control that because that's something that she hasn't been able to create as kind of their backstory and kind of their makeup as characters, really.
So, Vision brings in the binkies. He has them in his ear, where his ears would be if he had ears, I guess.
It's great, yeah.
He gives them to the babies, and they're quiet for about a second before they spit them out. And that's when Wanda says, "Maybe we need some help." And that's right when Agnes walks in saying, "Hey, kiddo," in typical 80s fashion. Vision changes to his human form behind a pillow because he wasn't expecting this. And it's alluded to that Wanda actually calls her there. Agnes says that she was she was called there, due to the screaming, right? Like, because Vision was like, well, who told you? And then she says, my ears. Obviously, I don't think she could hear the babies from walking past the house, but it does seem like as soon as Wanda says she needed help, there is Agnes to help. So you can see that two different ways, I guess. Then it gets, Vision doesn't want Agnes to hold the children. It's kind of played off like normal dad being, normal new parent, I'd say, because it's not limited to dads, but being kind of like nervous about other people holding the children. But then the laughter stops. It gets kind of weird. And, Agnes asks if she should take it again from the top, almost like she knows that this is a TV show. And then she even says, you want me to hold the babies, right, Wanda? And, Vision then lets Agnes give it a try because Wanda says so. But he calls Wanda to the side here and asks what's happened. What was your take on this, Logan? Do you think this is something that Wanda is doing here? She seemed kind of confused about Agnes asking about taking it from the top as well.
Yeah, I love this part because it's because I watched a lot of the 80s and 90s, obviously sitcoms, because those are the ones that came into play. And every time you watch the bloopers, you always see the people like break character and go, okay, from the top. So this one almost makes me think that, and to be honest, like when she's nervously like, do you want to take this from the top? It almost feels like they're scared of Wanda. I think like,
right.
The powers that she has, I think are things that these people are in fear of. And I think Agnes breaks a couple of times, but she, just taking this and talking to Wanda about all this, I think it's scary for her to try to piece together, like, is Wanda doing it? Is Wanda breaking character? Is it because she's starting to feel things like sadness or something like that has broken this trance that she's put all these people underneath? In his town. So I think that in Westview, I think that she's starting to feel even her powers crumble because she's starting to doubt herself. And I think maybe some remorse is coming in, or maybe she's, this is her way of grieving. And now she's starting to get to that stage of acceptance. And then she's starting to lose the powers that she has over the people of the village.
Vision is kind of starting to catch on here at this point, and we do get some great comedy from Catherine Hahn's Agnes here. She's wonderful in this show with talking about spraying the lavender, and her husband sprays it. She can't, but he can't keep that tiger down or whatever. And then you get her looking for the dark liquor, not for her, but for the babies. What kind of babysitter do you think she is? It is very late 1980s, early 1990s comedy here with like the babysitters and the way that I could see this happening on like Full House.
Oh yeah, like, and when she pops in the door, that whole
very
scene
Kimmy
reminds
like.
me of. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, she looks like Kimmy. She sounds like Kimmy. She's always there. Like, they always look at her like, and almost Vision acts like she's an inconvenience at times because he's like, oh God, here she comes again. But you're right. I think it's very Kimmy-like. It's great.
We get some silence at this point, and the babies are no longer in the cribs, and then they turn around after they hear mommy and daddy, and there they are, age 5 now. Again, I don't think this is Wanda doing this, and I think it makes it clearer later on in the show. But it seems to be that Billy and Tommy are the ones determining how old they are.
Do you think like somebody on the outside has a control? Like, obviously, I think there's something going on. There's obviously some kind of villainous character, I think, that we are going to get to. But do you think it's somebody controlling the kids, like somebody else has accessed her abilities or something like that, that's throwing her off of her abilities to control?
I don't actually. I think my main theory is that because they were born in this reality, they are not, and we'll get to it because there's a line I think that kind of points in my favor in that, but we'll see how they played out. But I think them changing their age and stuff, I do believe that's one of the brothers, the one that'll go by Wiccan later in life, if they go by the comics, he would have like Scarlet Witch type powers, and he would be able to change their age. And they kind of look at each other before they change ages, so I feel like that might be the way they're going with it. I do think that there's somebody more deeper into this, which I'm sure we'll talk about here, but I do not think it is anybody able to have control over the children. I think that they want the children maybe, but I'm not sure if they can control them. Even Agnes says you can't control children. So it does seem like maybe if we take her literally there and not just as a joke, it might be something to that. Then we get the theme song. The theme song's fun. It's a mix of family ties with the painting aspect to it. There's some growing pains in there, which is the photos, you know, them showing the people from children all the way up to where they are at the show now. And there's some Full House in there with the running towards the camera and the picnic in the park. So lots of fun references there. The best part of this is probably Baby Vision, I think, here.
Yeah, it's great.
I also liked seeing Santa Vision, and I liked that the boys had a birthday cake that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as they're celebrating all 5 years
Right.
at their birthday. Then we go right into outside of Westview, and we have Monica, who's being asked the last thing she remembers as they're taking x-rays. And we find out that the x-ray came back blank. And the blood work also had something wrong with it where they'd have to draw another sample. Do you have any theories on this, Logan? Because I'm probably going to blow your mind here. Maybe. We'll see.
No, I didn't really even. I mean, I knew obviously there was something important coming from it. Maybe because she, I don't know, maybe wipes her, but I have no idea. I was sitting there thinking about that too. I was like, how does this, how's this going to come back? Because obviously something important's going on.
In the comics, she goes by the name Photon, which is one of her names anyway. She's been Photon, she's been Spectrum, and she's been Captain Marvel. She was actually the first female Captain Marvel in comics. But she has powers in the comics that can absorb light and X-rays, ultraviolet radiation, and gamma rays, microwaves, and radio waves. So if she was absorbing the X-ray, then I would think it would come back blank. So I think maybe she might have her powers now. I don't think she knows she has her powers. A lot of people are speculating maybe she got her powers since there's so much radiation in the bubble, and Wanda sent her all the way out of the bubble and she had to come flying through it without any sort of protective gear. Some people think maybe that is going to be what gives her her power. What do you think about that?
I was going to say that's great setup for that. I mean, just again with Marvel, and we talked about this. I know that when we talked Marvel stuff back in through our text and through I think even Quarantine and Chill, we talked some Marvel and stuff. But just the attention to detail, and they're so small. Like the details are so small in some of these movies and films. But then you look back on this, 5 to 6 years later, and you go, can you believe like that was something that Marvel set up way back then so that they could put this piece? I mean, it's just a little puzzle piece. Just the fact that she gets thrown from this Westview bubble that she's been in and gets her powers out. I mean, it's unbelievable that they can. And of course, you can blow my mind with just about anything from the comics, because I know, just like Casey, I'm very limited in my comic range.
We have Jimmy Woo and Darcy checking on Monica. The director comes out and has a meeting for more intel and says that they thought Wanda was the victim, but now they realize she is the main victimizer. And he kind of starts trying to paint Wanda in the light of a terrorist or villain, right? Like he says, does she have a nickname like the other superheroes? Jimmy says no. But I listened to a podcast as well, and this guy pointed out correctly that doesn't make any sense anyway, because a lot of the villains go by nicknames anyway, so it doesn't really help or hurt his cause. But I think he means that, I think he might think that she exerted some sort of control over the Avengers to make them trust her. Wanda's not a terrorist, is what Monica says, and she brings out the actual definition of terrorism. Having a political agenda. And then the director Hayward says that he has been granted permission to release the security footage from 9 days ago, and it shows Wanda breaking into the sword facility and stealing Vision's body back, whose body is actually in kind of like chunks, I guess. It's not like all together, which is against the Sokovia Accords, but it's also against Vision's will of not becoming a living weapon. But also, I feel like that's what SWORD was trying to do, right? They were trying to somehow reverse engineer what made Vision work so they can have that information. Do you trust this director Hayward, Logan?
No, I felt that way when he was talking to SWORD, or I mean, just talking and kind of detailing like her coming through SWORD and stealing Vision's body. Like I got that weird feeling, almost like I'm trying to think of maybe something that I can compare it to. That they're of course, all these movies are escaping my mind now, but I do feel like I guess maybe. It's kind of that same feeling that I had with I forget the lady's name. She's the commander when Poe tries to basically
Aldo.
take. Yes, it kind of like she didn't turn out being horrible, but I do have like that weird feeling that he just doesn't have the interest of what's going on, and I think he's trying to figure out like who Wanda is and why she's doing what she's because she feels like, and he might not be like a villain, but I think he definitely doesn't trust Wanda, and I think that that's become apparent obviously with the line about did she do something to the Avengers, that which is still funny to me, and I know she's probably the most powerful Avenger, but she like the fact that she could persuade Thor and all of them is always funny to me, because I think that bringing in some of these new people that are questioning Wanda, but again she is very powerful, so I think maybe some of it has to do with fear, but I don't trust him at all, really. I don't know. I think if we're going to get a villain, it'll end up being him, and in some way he's got something going on that he's doing something to Wanda, or is doing something to what's happening in Westview.
A common theory seems to be that maybe he's trying to cover something up here, right? Like, he, as we'll get to here, he's the one that says to shoot, take the shot when the drone is there. He states that Wanda stole Vision's body, which is true, but what were they doing to him, right? They were probably experimenting, which is also against Vision's will and also unethical. And as Monica said last episode, it's SWORD, the Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Department, not creation's not in there, right? And that's alluding to them trying to make their own weapons. And I think that's what Hayward was trying to do. He's trying to build a weapon of, based off of Vision's tech. So I think now he's maybe trying to take them out without, or he was trying to take Wanda out. One, because of, sometimes that's how military people are, is just, okay, this is the aggressor, take out the leader. Everybody's going to be fine once we take her out, saves lives. But also I think maybe he's like, then we can get Vision back and we can get back to experimenting on this. Right. So yeah, I liked him in the last episode. I didn't get that creepy vibe like some people did, but in this one, yeah, he's a little bit of a, as Darcy was going to say, a dick.
Yeah, she labels him or he labels Wanda as a terrorist, basically. I mean,
right.
Just the idea that she has malintent, and then Monica's like, well, no, I don't think she's got malintent. Like, I don't think that that's something that she's capable of. Because I do feel like her, Jimmy and them, I think that they, Jimmy and Darcy believe that she is created this to try to hurt, keep from hurting, because obviously she steals Vision, like dead body, like that in and of itself is kind of creepy. But the fact that she did that, it's got to mean she's hurting, right?
But did she do it because she was hurting, or did she do it because she knew that they were experimenting on him? And then once she has him, she's like, well, now I can go live my life. You know?
Well, that makes sense then. Yeah, because I could see that, because I mean, you're right. I think that there's going to be some kind of breaking off, just kind of like what Fury did with S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, I think that there's, somebody on the wrong side of the war that is infiltrating this, and it could be Hayward. I think he definitely has that kind of sleazy look to him. And again, it might be setting up this whole elaborate, like, they're experimenting on these dead Avengers, or God, who knows what they're doing. Just trying to understand like what's going on. But again, we're like at the ground surface, so I'm not going to worry myself too much about it just yet. But the fact that he labels her a terrorist is, that's got to be bad.
We get back to Westview. Billy and Tommy have a dog in the sink. Agnes comes over with the doghouse. And also Vision is dressed up in his normal human look. And Wanda asks why, and he says he thinks somebody's going to drop by. This is a very Kimmy, Mr. Tanner situation here, I feel like.
I love that quote.
This is where I really feel like, Agnes is Kimmy in this Full House type of deal here.
I liked Vision's quote, though. He was like, of course you bring over exactly what's needed.
Yeah, and he's starting to really wonder, now Agnes's excuse is that she saw the dog through the window. Sure. So what, you already had a doghouse? It is very suspicious. They wanted to name the dog. I forget what they want to name the dog. Something with an S that was not Sparky. But then once the dog almost gets electrocuted, they name. She says Sparky, and they, Wanda uses her magic right in front of Agnes, who's not looking, but right in front of Agnes, and gives the collar. She says, oh, it's okay. Agnes wasn't even paying attention. But also, wouldn't then she wonder, how did you already have a name tag with Sparky ready? Right. Wanda's not thinking too much. And it's either because she's tired of having to control everything, or, she's just not as afraid of showing herself off to the residents, at this point.
Yeah, it does. It has that Kimmy stalker looking through the window vibe. But again, I don't know how much to trust, because it's like, okay, so I can't wait for all this to start unfolding, because right now, and especially because when we get to the end, it's just, I'm confused, like by Wanda and like what's really going on. But I'm sure we'll get there.
The kids then age up to 10 when Vision says they'd have to be 10 years old to take care of a dog. And we get back to the sword camp. Darcy starts calling it the Hex, which me and Casey really liked, actually, from yesterday's show that will never hear the light of day, apparently. But we both enjoyed it being called the Hex. One, it's a reference to the hexagonal shape, but also in the comics, Wanda's power is called Hex powers because she's a witch. So it kind of works on both levels there. Monica mentioned something about needing like a fallout shelter on wheels to get through there, to get back into Westview. There's been clips and trailers of this tank thing going through the into the Hex. So maybe she gets her way. We'll see how that pans out. And Jimmy comes back from getting them coffee, so Darcy's getting her coffee finally. And he's happy to be bringing it. He looks like he's joyful today. I love Jimmy Woo so much.
He's so good. God, so good.
And, they tell him, hey, her kid's aged up to 10. And he's like, I love his line here. They're going to be empty nesters by like supper or whatever.
Right. Marvel kills it with this kind of humor. It's that very subtle, like, let's just stick this in here. And I feel like it's perfect for Vision because it's kind of like that dad humor that I really like. Kind of like Ant-Man was, because I actually just watched Ant-Man yesterday. It was on TV because I think they were doing like leading up to WandaVision, like they had Jimmy on. But it was just really interesting that they use all this kind of humor just to kind of to settle that mood.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting here too is Jimmy starts saying like, who are these kids? Who's cast as the kids, right? And we get confirmation from Monica that, or I'm going to take this as confirmation from the writers here through Monica saying her kids are real. And she delivered them, so I'm assuming she would know. But, they kind of test her on that by saying, well, can't she just make you think you're seeing it? That kind of stuff. But I do believe Monica here that the kids are real. they say that, like, okay, if she's doing all of this, then she has a power level that's unreal. And that's where, Monica says, well, she could have took out Thanos without him until he rained fire on his own troops. And nobody else could have done that. I love Jimmy here saying Captain Marvel could have, got her powers from the stone as well. And Monica kind of seems maybe a little upset here about Captain Marvel. For people that don't remember, Monica is the little girl in Captain Marvel. Her mom is Captain Marvel's best friend in that movie. And I'm wondering, Logan, do you think maybe something happened where that's how Monica got, not Monica, but Maria got cancer? Or is she upset that Captain Marvel never came back to visit? Like, what do you think it is here that she kind of wanted to change the subject immediately when they start talking about Carol?
You see, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like when they started talking about her, at first I guess I wasn't focused enough on it. I thought for like they were alluding to the fact that she might come in like to help, but then I was like, when I played it back, I was like, wait a minute, no, she's talking to me about it. Kind of looks like she's fallen out of favor with Captain Marvel and Carol, but like I think it is a matter of just them. Something's happened. I think that's at least what I got from the impression that she gave that, like, I don't want to talk about it kind of thing, just because she avoids the second time it's brought up. But I think that, definitely a falling out, definitely something has happened. And again, it's really weird because we got Spider-Man Far From Home, right? And then all this crazy stuff happened. And this is like, it's weird to hear them talking about Thanos and like the demise of Thanos, because it's like this is the only the second like thing that we've gotten where they talk about like the fallout, because there is. I mean, I'm assuming there's fallout from all this stuff that's happened, Captain Marvel included. So maybe and
this is the most recent. Just for timeline verification's sake, for people that didn't pick up on this is 3 weeks after Endgame, pretty much, and only 9 days after Vision's body was taken. And let's also say here that Far From Home is 8 months after Endgame. So this is actually taking place before Far From Home. So in this case, if you ever want to rewatch this, you just slot this in right after Endgame, I guess. But it's interesting that, of course, this stuff would come back up, right? Because they've only been really 3 weeks removed from it at this point.
To think that, yeah.
And for us, it's been almost 2 years.
Right. It's been 2 years since we were sitting in the theaters thinking that everything was going to be fine, and by fall we'd have all this great content. But then it all fell through. But again, like I said, I do think that there's the coolest thing will be catching up with everybody. So you're going to catch up with Star-Lord, with Thor, with all those guys, and what's going on with them. What's the fallout there? What's the fallout of Hawkeye, right? What's the fallout for Falcon? Like what happens because of all this? And obviously we're going to go back in time with Loki some. But I think that you're getting a cool setup of what's happening, right? There's another Captain Marvel movie coming, so something's obviously happened with her and Monica, maybe because of her mother.
Monica's in it. They've announced that Monica's going to be in Captain Marvel too. So obviously, I think I don't think we'll see it play out a lot more in this show. I think that storyline is going to be covered in the sequel. So
in the comics, and this might be a little bit off base, but Monica's in this. So in that, does Monica ever become almost like a nemesis to Captain Marvel? Like, has that ever happened?
Nothing I could find. They're usually friends, and they usually fight, side by side. They're not usually a
like a civil war kind of thing.
Yeah,
like maybe that's more realistic than an actual falling out. But yeah, I think it's really cool that they're setting up this whole Monica storyline with Captain Marvel, because obviously, what is that? That's coming out. Is that next year? That's coming out.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's 2022. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool because again, we're starting to see where all these characters are landing. Obviously, Darcy's back, and Thor's out there somewhere, and just all these really cool things just coming back into the fold. And it's pretty interesting because talking about Vision, I think that he's more of a psyche to Wanda, where Wanda's starting to come out of this funk of how is she dealing with what happened.
I liked getting this answer too, that it was kind of set up at last episode of what's been kind of a question throughout the whole thing, is this really Vision? Yes, it is. This is his body, at least. And it definitely shows she can't control him, as we'll see later, that he has some sort of ownership over his decisions here in this world. And he is, able to, maybe I should save that for later, but it's just interesting that we now got that answer of, yes, this is his body. How did she bring him back to life? We don't know. But she got her powers from the Mind Stone. He had the Mind Stone in his head. And that's how she blew up the Mind Stone, too, was by, before Thanos reversed it, was using her powers to be the same as his powers to be able to overwhelm the stone. Maybe she's just able to reanimate him due to her powers from the Mind Stone. I think that might be the most simplest way, but he's still able to act on his own. He's not being like a puppet. Monica finds her costume and shoots at it, and it shows that it's made of the Kevlar that she had in before. And that's kind of what I suspected, is that at least part of her clothing would be what she wore going into the Hex. And in fact, I had somebody bring this up on a show, and I was like, oh, I thought that was just something most people would get. And I thought of it too, but I don't think I mentioned on here, sadly, so I don't have any receipts for that. But her sword necklace, I thought most simply that's her badge, her sword badge being a sword necklace in the Anomaly. So that way, it fits in with the aesthetic. So I brought that up to Casey yesterday as well. He agreed with me that probably makes sense. What do you think, Logan? Is if her pants are her pants and her vest is her vest, do you think that necklace is the badge she had around her neck?
Yeah, I think so. It makes sense. Honestly, I didn't even think of that when I was watching it, but yeah, that makes sense to me. Would that be so? What does she wear when she is? You said she's called Proton, right?
Photon. Yeah.
Photon. Okay. So sorry, wrong particle. So what does she wear when she is? When she is in that character?
It depends, I guess. I think I have most of her costumes right here. It's usually white and black or white and red outfits. So, I'll share my screen to you real quick so you can see.
Okay.
So this will make great audio podcasting here.
This is wonderful. So yeah, what Jordan is currently sharing is photons. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would.
She
make
goes
sense.
by Photon sometimes.
Yeah.
She's gone by Spectrum sometimes, and she's gone by Captain Marvel before.
Mm-hmm.
So. I think they're going to go by Photon in the MCU because of her mom being
right
called Photon. It said it on her nameplate, like Maria Photon Rambo. I think she's going to take that from her mom. But, yeah, moving on here. We get back to Westview, and Vision is working in his office, and, Norm is there, and they get an email for the first time, right? I love the comedy here too with the, Norm gets a letter opener and Vision says, "We're already cutting edge." It's just, it did seem very 80s, 90s jokes there.
Where do I put the stamp? Where do I put the stamp?
Then it gets very Twilight Zone-esque here, where they get an email from Sword and they all read it aloud. It seemed very strange that way. And this is where Vision's like, wait, what's going on? And then everybody laughs after they get to the end of the email. And, it's all very bizarre. And then Vision touches the computer and it turns off. He then touches Norm, and Abalash is the actor who plays Norm, wakes up and is worried about his father and his sister, trying to find his cell phone to give them a call, tells him it hurts and that you have to stop her. He doesn't say who. Most people think it's Wanda. I would probably tend to agree just because of Monica saying at the beginning of the show that she could feel Wanda in her, like kind of stopping her from, being fully awake. But with the hers and the she's and stuff like that, it could potentially be somebody else as well. Maybe Wanda's not doing everything.
I think it's setting up, like, with him. I think it sets up kind of this. It's weird because, and it's the same way. So, like, when I was watching this scene, I was thinking back to Infinity War, when Vision and Wanda are having that conversation of, like, to end Thanos, you need to do it. You need to destroy the stone. And he's always been kind of this voice of reason for her. And so I think that maybe, similarly, even though he's not technically alive, he is in this reality. And I think he's going to become, because I think later on the episode we get a good point that proves this theory, that I think he's very much going to be a voice, and like, because I picture this as like being her brain, like her head, and this is going on in her head, and that Vision is trying to come to grasp with, like, Wanda's doing something horrible. And I think that these people are trying to warn him that she's doing this to them, and that he needs to be the stable voice that says, Wanda, you need to cut it out. Like, you need to move on from the fact that I'm no longer there. So I think that that's something that's setting up, especially with this scene, because it was so weird how they all were, like, almost rehearsed when they were reading that email, and then she's starting to lose grasp, and then that's when it happens. Is like she's losing control, and Vision's trying to figure it out.
We get the boys training Sparky the dog, and they ask, where's Dad? She says, at work. But they say it's Saturday. Wanda then says it's Monday. The boys then say this morning was Saturday. And Wanda says there was an emergency. He needed to go to work. When that doesn't really work, she says he needed a distraction. And then it makes the boys think he needs a distraction from them. And we get those typical sitcom family. No, not with you. He just, he'll always love you, that kind of thing. Just like you guys are always brothers, etc. Then they ask if she's had a brother. She says yes, but he lives far away. This is where I think that the boys being the only ones born in this reality and shows that they're real is really relevant and prevalent in here, because let's listen to this conversation again. Where is Dad? He's at work. The boys say it's Saturday. No, it's Monday. Well, this morning was Saturday. But also, what's been going on in these shows, right? Like, Wanda is living sitcoms throughout these times, within a span of like 24 real hours, right? From when Monica goes in to when the second episode events are going on, it's only been 24 hours, but they'd already moved from the 50s to the 60s. And we know that there's episodes that they've seen that we haven't seen, because they've referenced numerous times that they've seen more episodes than just the 4 we've seen. Right.
Right.
So that means episodes for sitcoms don't usually take place on the same day all the time. So I feel like in this, it's supposed to be, okay, new day. Vision is now at work, but the boys are still like, this is the same day. It should still be Saturday, Mom. But she's not realizing it because she's losing it, I guess. And also, she doesn't realize that the kids are not going to just take her excuse either. So she has to come up with a few other excuses to get them to understand why Vision's at work. What do you think about that?
That makes sense. And watching sitcoms, it is weird that it's hard to tell sometimes, like, when it breaks day, until the characters allude to it. But that is, you know what? It's interesting, just because the boys are in the reality of, like, that's not how time works, and Wanda's in this existential crisis of, like, that is how time works. Don't
it works here that way.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how dare you? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. That's pretty good. I didn't even really think that deeply into it until now.
Yeah, we'll see if I'm right or not, or if it's just, she lost track of days because she's tired or something. But, the boys seem to know that it's Saturday, and Sparky is barking at the door. He's scared of something. It's the drone, right? The drone from the 80s. So what happened is Monica realizes that if they send something in that doesn't need to change its look because it fits with the time, then it won't change, is her theory. And it works out. They send in a 1980s drone, and it doesn't have to change to fit in with the aesthetic because this episode is taking place in the 80s. So they get the drone. It's not very good drone. It's losing some of the signal every so often. And Monica starts trying to say to Wanda, like, hey, I'm Captain Rambo. This is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And that's when Hayward says, take the shot, right? And we get some really cool scene here. Wanda walks through the barrier, drops the drone at the feet of Sword, and she's in like her normal Avengers gear, right? As she leaves the building, she threatens the director. She has them all aim their guns at him, which is great because it allows her time to walk away. And Monica's like, hey, we can help you. You know me. I delivered your children. You can read my mind. So you already knew I was Sword. You already knew all this stuff, but you still let me in. And she's like, what can we do? What can we get you? And Wanda is very straightforward of, I already have everything I want. And it's true. She's got Wanda. She's got Vision. She's got the kid. She's got this perfect life. And she said, nobody's going to take that away from me again. And she goes back through the barrier. Just a awesome scene. It was great to see Wanda walk out of it. I was not expecting that in this episode. Any thoughts on this scene?
It shows how powerful and scary she can be. It was
she could have took out Hayward if she wanted.
The crap. She says, I am happy what I'm doing. You need to leave me alone. And I love her cadence too. She's got such is it Olsen, right? Elizabeth Olsen.
Mary Kate Ashley's sister.
Right. She's got such good the cadence to just it's kind of like that fiery red because she's got that hue to her magical powers. It's like that red, the Scarlet Witch. But she steps out and she goes, basically, leave me alone. I'm happy here, and you need to leave me alone and stop doing stuff to me. And it's like, whoa, that's pretty powerful. She just breaks this barrier like it's nothing and says, you need to back up.
Then we get the commercial of the episode. It's Lagos Towels. For people that don't know what Lagos is, they mention it in this episode as well. But at the beginning of Captain America Civil War, they're in Lagos, Nigeria. And that is where they're chasing Rumlow, who is known as Crossbones, from Winter Soldier. And he's about to blow up Cap, and she maintains the blast and sends it up to the sky, but it blows up and kills some Wakandans and some Nigerians in a building. And this reference here to the towels, it says, for when you make a mess you didn't mean to. So obviously, I think this is still part of Wanda kind of rather repressing these memories, or somehow they're coming back through these commercial means of, her saying she didn't mean to do it. And actually probably would have killed more people if she let it blow up in the marketplace where everybody's crowded around Cap and Rumlow fighting. But, it kind of kicked off then the events of Civil War, which then left the Avengers broken for when Thanos came, which then led to her losing Vision. So it kind of like this domino effect here, starting from that Lagos event. Sparky ran out of the room during the drone thing, and they're going to look for him. And this is the part of the episode I don't like. The mailman, says,
this is brutal.
The mailman says your mom won't let him get far, which is again insinuating that Wanda's in control here. And he was right, because if Sparky's in Agnes's bushes, that's right next door to the house. So we didn't get far at all. They didn't look hard enough, I guess. But Agnes finds Sparky dead. Apparently he ate azaleas, which is actually toxic to dogs. And the kids beg for Wanda to bring him back. And they're so sad. They're about to age themselves up, and she asks them not to. And they do listen. And Wanda's trying to teach them about death. So I do wonder, do you think Wanda actually set it up for the dog to die to teach them this lesson?
Not purposefully, I don't think. I think, yes, in a way, but I think it was very subconscious. Like, I think a lot of what's going on now is more of her subconscious getting in the way. And I think the realization of Vision, like, this is the moment when I thought, like, this is her clearly talking about to herself about the fact that, and there's a quote that is like, we can't reverse death no matter how sad it makes us. And then she looks at Vision. And I think it's like that parallel of like teaching her kids this, that it's okay. And these kids are, I imagine, reality because it's something that's throwing around. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not, maybe whatever. But like talking to them, but also in a way it's teaching her that it's okay for her to feel sad, but she needs to move on from Vision's death, and kind of accept the fact that, get through the grieving stage and get to the fact that just accepting that Vision is no longer around. And I love that quote just because you can tell it's her looking and breaking the glass and thinking, like, looking at Vision going, it's okay, accept death because it comes and there's no way to reverse it.
Yeah, it's very hypocritical for her, too, to tell her kids they can't reverse death when this is what her whole point of doing this is.
Everybody.
Vision comes home, and then I guess he buried the dog because, like, later when she's cleaning up the toys, he comes in washing his hands and he says, it's tough to have a dog and lose it in the same day. And then the scene really changes as Vision kind of puts a test out here with saying, I spoke with Norm, and she's just like, oh, okay. And he says, I spoke with him like free of your control. And he was in pain. And this is where Vision's really trying to see what's going on here. Wanda starts making credits appear as if the show's ending. And Vision is not having it. He said, no, what? You're going to go back up. We're going to reset. Everything's going to change again, meaning like the time frame, just so you can ignore this conversation. Like, no. They exit the room and the credits disappear. That was just a really fun part of the episode. He asked like what the Maximoff anomaly is because I think that was what was in the email, and they start arguing. He's like, what is outside of Westview? She says like, it doesn't really matter. You just, and that's when he, says you don't get to make that choice for me. He can't remember his life before Westview. He even says, and he's scared. They start floating up in the air about to like brawl, it looks like, and they both settle back down. But then he brings up, why are there no other children in this town? I go for work every morning and that playground stands empty every day on my way to work. And she tries to say, well, there's children here, but we haven't seen any. And she says, you think I'm in charge of Westview? Like, you think I'm in charge of getting everybody to their dentist appointments and stuff like that. She even mentioned she does not know how this started in the first place, which makes me believe that maybe she's not the one that created this reality. The doorbell rings and she has to clarify that she did not do that. So it makes me believe that she is the one that called Agnes over earlier. Vision doesn't really believe her. This is where Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen just give such great performances.
Oh, that's so good.
It is really good. Paul Bettany, like, almost like screaming, and she's like, you've never spoken to me this way. It's because he's scared. He doesn't know what's going on. He has no
what is my
basis.
Life? What was my life before this? I want to know, Wanda, what is my life before this? He goes, I can't remember anything, and I'm scared. That scares me. Like this, I get goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Like, it is so well done by Paul Bettany. Like, it's fantastic. And just the fact that, like, it's kind of that Elizabeth Olsen backing up, like, I don't know what's going on, Biz. I have no idea what's actually happening.
Right. Then we get Wanda going to the door, and we see Pietro, or somebody claiming to be Pietro, or we don't know yet. Now, what's interesting here for people that don't know, this is Pietro by Evan Peters, who played Quicksilver in the X-Men Fox films in like the 2015, 2017, all those. And the crowd is back now. The crowd is back laughing at like him at the jokes he's making and stuff, which wasn't the case since the credits disappeared. There was no crowd at all. The audio description, if you watch the audio description for like blind people, it says this is Pietro from the X-Men films. We don't know if that means that it actually is some sort of multiverse thing, or if this is somebody posing to be Pietro. He doesn't actually say his name until Wanda says Pietro. Part of that could be because I think in the X-Men films he goes by Peter instead of Pietro, so it could be something like that. So who knows? It's a good cliffhanger. The show ends there, but we do get Darcy asking, she recast Pietro, which I thought was a great line. And you know what? It fits with the 80s theme too. Those shows always had recasting people.
Yeah.
So
and brutal recasting.
So what I guess before we get out here, what's your theories here, Logan? Do you think this is a multiverse X-Men Pietro coming in here? This is how they bring the X-Men in, or do you think this is somebody posing to be Pietro and Marvel just had fun casting somebody that's played him before?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it is teasing that X-Men are coming. I don't know if this is necessarily where they fit this in. It'll be interesting to see where they take the next episode, but again, my questions were more of like, okay, somebody else is in on this, like whether she's doing this subconsciously or not, or somebody else is messing with Wanda at this point. Like Wanda has this non-existent like reality, but like then I think somebody else is also toying with her. Like I think they're placing people strategically in to try to mess with her. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. But I think this is just more of a tip to the cap that like, it seems very Disney Plus and Marvel of like, we have the X-Men, they're coming. Just this isn't the one where you're going to get a lot of that information and how they're coming.
I think that the kids made Pietro appear.
That's interesting.
They ask about her brother. She tells them some information, and they hear the parents fighting, and maybe they want to break up that fight, so they bring somebody by. It's definitely not our Pietro, not even recast it, because he has no idea who Vision is. He asks who the popsicle is. He knows who Vision is from Age of Ultron. So we don't really know. I guess we'll see how it goes next week, but I'm excited. I was not surprised by this because I actually heard reports all the way like almost 2 years ago saying that Evan Peters was coming back for a role in it. So a lot of people speculated that would be fun if he was playing Quicksilver. So I was kind of, expecting that to happen. I didn't know it would be this episode though at the door, but I wasn't shocked as some people have been that they're bringing in this. Elizabeth Olsen says that there's a Luke Skywalker level cameo to the Mandalorian season finale in the show. I don't think she was referring to this. If she was, then this is not Luke Skywalker level. It's hard to get to Luke Skywalker level.
I was going to say the only one that it could be is Iron Man, right? Like
that would probably be the only one.
That's the only one that's like truly dead that like would be that satisfying for fans.
I think another one that can appear is definitely Doctor Strange. There's been rumors he might be in this show for at least an episode. That would be cool. I would love to see him. He's a sorcerer. If they realize she's a sorcerer, maybe they call upon Doctor Strange to help out. And that, she's supposed to be in Doctor Strange too. So this is where you can kind of start seeing everything come together maybe.
Gosh, this is so exciting. This is like the beginning, because we know like that you get rid of that last generation of it and they're bringing on this new form of it. You're like, this is gonna I've told you multiple times, like this is like one of those, this is like the Iron Man level of where we are with this next phase of
Right.
Marvel. Like this is the groundworks, and we're gonna look back on these and go, man, can you believe they set all that up with these 2 or 3? This is nuts.
Definitely. Just a little Easter egg here. Sparky is the name of Vision's dog in the Tom King Vision run. It was a synthesoid dog, though, kind of like Vision is. So just a fun little reference to the comics there. Not much else really in Easter eggs for this episode, but yeah, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us on Twitter at To Infinity Saga. That's TO Infinity Saga. We have facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. You can email us at marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. Thank you, Logan, for jumping on. For people that don't know, Logan's going to be jumping on for at least the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the finale, I believe. And then he's going to be recapping Loki here with us. So if you liked what you heard, you can catch him on those episodes as well. And we'll have Casey back next week, hopefully with all the technical issues sorted out. And I'll have him give a quick, brief thought on what he thought of this episode. So thanks, everybody, for listening, and have a great rest of your weekend.